Okay, welcome. So I'm currently in my hotel in Dahab, which is a small town on the Red Sea in Egypt. So I'm just having like a lot of lessons come through right now. And so I wanted to make a podcast to talk about it because it feels really significant and like I'm healing and breaking like a lifetime of cycles and patterns, particularly when it comes to dating.
Planet New Podcast.
This is the journey of setting yourself free.
So if I had to pick a relationship attachment style, it would probably be the pattern in my life has been like anxious attachment. So if someone is avoidant or distant, that makes me lean in, that makes me scared, that makes me chase them, even if I didn't really want them before. And so I've just noticed that because, first of all, when I've come to Dahab, when I've been on my travels, I've had literally zero interest in dating because I'm focused on healing right now. I still have like physical health goals I need to reach. I'm still healing from mold toxicity, et cetera, et cetera. So I have like no interest in dating. You know, my friends ask me like, why don't you date? I say I've got enough trauma. Like for context, it's been probably 2 years, almost 2 years since I've even been in a talking stage with a guy. And before that, it was another 2 years. Like it's just not existent. And I've just had no interest because I've been working on myself, on my own trauma and things like that. But what's interesting is like what's been coming through really strong in Dahab is like, what do I really want to do with my life? What do I really want? Like, what's the deepest desires of my heart? Money's not an issue here because the lifestyle is so cheap. So I feel like I'm living the hypothetical question of, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do with your life? And I've also noticed that a lot of my ambition in the past, like my business, even my podcast, has really been fueled as almost like a survival mechanism, like this deep desire, like I have to succeed out of desperation because I need to get out of my place in life. Because for a long time, my place in life was being really sick, not being able to work a 9 to 5, having autism, not being able to afford living in Australia. So it was just this deep survival mechanism that I threw onto my projects to try and force me to like get out of my desperate situation. But now I feel like I'm free from it. And so now a lot of those survival mechanisms are kind of wearing away. And a large part of my healing journey has been to step out of my masculine and soften because I realized how that has purely been a survival mechanism. And now that I am doing that, I'm really like losing my ambition. Like there's a quote I saw and it says, the more healed I become, the less ambitious I become. Now, look, I'm always going to be ambitious. If I really understand the value of discipline and hard work, and I'll always value that. And I'll always put that towards what I'm chasing. But the question is, what am I chasing and why? Like, am I chasing, my business because I really believe in sustainable fashion, or am I chasing it because am I trying to achieve unrealistic goals as an unconscious way to prove myself that I'm good enough? Basically, I'm wondering, is my direction being chosen? Is it coming from a place of love or fear? Is it coming from love for myself and the world, or is it coming from the fear of not being good enough? And I've had to analyze this a lot in my life because this one question, I've noticed this one driving voice contributes to my eating disorders in the past. There's a lot of things that it's contributed, which has like pulled me off center, off path, in unalignment. And there's a really famous quote by Carl Jung who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so I think a large part of the journey for me has been really analyzing my unconscious desires, and analyzing like, where is this drive really coming from? What do I really want? And I'm faced with that question again. It's like I've circled back to it. There's another quote and it's like, the healing journey is not linear. It's like a spiral. Like you always return to like the same topics, but from a different perspective. So I'm in Dahab. I'm living a postcard life. It's beautiful here. And I'm like, what the fuck do I want to do with my life? So what's really been coming through is like community. Like I really just feel sometimes like I'm so overwhelmed by the beauty here that I'm like, I wish I had someone to share it with. And so like in an ideal world, I could travel full time with my family, but like that wouldn't, isn't really going to happen. So I think honestly, like part of me feels ready to kind of meet, I guess, my soulmate, for lack of a better word. I really feel like I'm ready to meet my person and kind of start building a life with them. I feel like I've done the work. I've released a lot of trauma. I'm kind of ready for that. At the same time, I'm not looking for that. So why this is like kind of relevant is because since arriving in Dahab, even though I haven't been looking, things have kind of come into my orbit, and it's been really interesting having such a long break from dating, how much I've changed and healed in that time, to see how I'm reacting to these situations and how very, very old, innate, deep-rooted traumas and feelings within myself are being activated and coming to the surface, where I have two choices, which is to continue repeating the pattern or really heal with it and face it and finally release it and break that cycle. So one of them was like, by the way, like living in Dahab, like you go to the beach and you just sit on like a sun lounge there. You just sit there all day and like people come and go. It's like speed dating because like someone will come and sit next to you. If you're like a female, like a solo girl, a guy will come and sit next to you. Like every 20 minutes, a different guy will come and like sit and like give you his dating resume. So like, this is how old I am. This is what I do for a job. I was raised by a single mother and two sisters, so I have a lot of respect for women, that kind of stuff. And that's great. But like none of it, I'm not interested in it. So because I'm not interested in dating, so whatever. But there was one person who I kind of like connected with a little bit, and I wasn't really interested, but they were kind of interested in me, but I was open-minded to it, right? And then I realized like after they asked me to come and meet them a few times and I said like, no, like I was actually sick at the time. And then they got really like just went blank and just stopped replying to me. Got really cold. And then what I realized is like I felt so much guilt about that, about them feeling rejected by me, that it made me lean in more and want to explain to them more and want to like soothe them. And it almost made me want to like be open-minded to them because to prove that they weren't being rejected, because I felt so guilty about the fact that they felt rejected. And I've noticed that this is a pattern in my past. This is the first one I've noticed. I've done entire relationships that I've gone into because I felt too guilty to leave. Like I felt like if I left, it would make them feel rejected. And I felt so guilty about that I would rather be in an uncomfortable fake relationship than to feel the guilt of making them feel rejected. So that was the first one. I ended up just, I didn't, interact with that. I didn't act on those feelings. Another thing has come into my orbit recently where like I met someone and like I thought we were kind of just like friends at first, and then we hung out, and then we really started connecting like deeper, having deeper conversations, philosophy, our ideals on marriage and relationships, things like this. And like after that, I kind of walked away feeling like, okay, like even though I don't necessarily think that this is like the one, I'm still going to lean into this because I'm not afraid. Like I'm not afraid of having my heart broken. I'm not afraid of love. And I just felt like there was something to learn there. So, and I'm also open-minded that I can be wrong, like, I don't think it's necessarily like as soon as you meet someone, that your soulmate for every single story. So I was open-minded to it, but it was very, very, very early stages. And like, I could tell that he was really into me. I could just tell. There were a lot of signs to suggest that. And then we basically just didn't talk at all for like days. And then I was like, okay. And I see him around all the time. So then I started, when I saw him, I'd like, oh, hi, like, and just want to have a conversation with him. And he would just like not talk back to me, basically. Like be polite, say hello. But then like, if I asked him a question, wouldn't ask it back. Like very just like putting balls up, basically. I was like, okay. And then the next day, the same thing, but like even less, just hello, goodbye. That was it. Okay. That's whatever. And then I got to like the third or fourth day, and then I just like sat down. It's like, did I do something to like upset you or like offend you? Like are we good? Basically. And then he was just like, did you offend me? And I was like, I don't know. Like, did I? Like, I don't think I did. I didn't mean to if I did. And he was like, okay. And like, that was it. And then I was kind of like, okay. And then it's so interesting because like after I left that conversation, there was like chaos storm going on inside of me, like complete whirlwind of emotion going on inside of me. And the interesting thing was not enough, like I didn't like him enough justified that amount of reaction inside of me. So I could see again, and this was like another cycle going around. So the first thing I realized is that, okay, he's an avoidant. Like he retracted, like after we got close, he retracted. And I've seen that pattern a lot in people. They get close, they freak out, they retract. Or well, there's two possibilities. One, if they retract, they're just not that into you. Second, they're really afraid of their own emotions, of where it could go, of getting hurt, blah, 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 blah. Either way, they're not ready for a relationship. They're not something that you should pursue. Like, I really deeply believe that. But I was ready to just be like, okay, whatever, like, chill, friends. But then after that, I kind of thought, I was just having such a reaction inside of me that it made me want them. I was like being drawn into their thing, and I felt bad. And I felt like, okay, like if they're, if they don't have the emotional maturity to have this conversation, I'll hold their hand. I'll walk them through it. I'll be patient with them. I'll create the space. I'll give them all the time they need, abandoning myself and my needs and what I need, right? What I want. I'll be patient with them. Now, this creates a mother-son dynamic, because I know this because I've had full-blown relationships in the past where that is what the dynamic has been the entire time. And yeah, I just realized, like, okay, him avoiding is making me want him more. Like, there's something fucked up about that. So I really sat with that. I was like, okay, what is this like chaos that's going on inside of me? And the first one is like, one, I feel like it's my responsibility to be the emotionally mature one and work this out. It becomes my responsibility what he's feeling, because he doesn't have the capability to deal with his emotions. Okay. And I'm not judging him for that. Like, we're all at different places on our journey. I know it's like a lot harder for men because they're not encouraged to do this, or, they haven't been taught this. So how are we to expect them to do that? Which is why I really love that men's mental health is getting a lot of talking podcasts. Like, I see memes or like videos paying out like men who have podcasts about just talking about men's mental health. Let them talk about men's mental health. Like, every fucking woman wants a man who's emotionally mature. So like, I'm not judging at all, but like, I just realized that there's something in me that, one, feels a responsibility to like soothe them and the emotions in the relationship. Secondly, I internalize this as, I'm not good enough. If I could be better, if I could prove that I'm good enough, his love for me will overcome his fear. His love will be stronger than his fear. If I'm enough, his love will be stronger than his fear. And that's like an outdated belief. That's not true. It doesn't resonate anymore. And so I'm sitting back and watching that play out in my mind and my feelings and being like, okay, that's not true, But in the past, I would have acted on these. Like, and I would have stayed around for months, years, like, based on these beliefs. Third thing is, I think part of me is addicted to this cycle. Like, I get addicted to the fantasy of them waking up one day and overcoming all of their issues and announcing their love to me and, growing up overnight, basically. And our relationship can go from there. And it's just so sad because there are people that I've met where I'm like, we have so much in common and so much connection that if you did have the emotional maturity to meet me at the table halfway, we actually could have been something beautiful. And so it's so sad being able to recognize that in a person and be like, I know that so much of us aligns, but they're not here yet. Like, they don't have these skills yet. So it's not something that I can control. That's the bottom line. There's nothing in the world that I can do to make this man come to the table and meet me halfway. Okay. That's a really, really, really hard thing to accept. Like, really hard. So there's something in me that wants to control and wants to, if I say the right thing to him, if I do the right thing, if I wait for the right timing, if I show the best version of me to him, then I can control the situation in such a way where I get the outcome that we both want. And that's something that I had to let go of today because I realized, like, that's absolutely not true. That was hard to and the reason why I think that this is so hard is because so much of our pop culture romance stories teach us that the emotionally unavailable man can one day grow up overnight and realize that you're the one and that they're sorry and announce their love for you, and then you go live happily ever after. For example, Carrie Bradshaw and Mr. Big. Like, he just wakes up one day and he's perfect. Blair Waldorf and Chuck Bass in Gossip Girl. I mean, he was literally a rapist in the first episode. Like, what the fuck? And then he turns into this perfect man, right? So we're told these stories in pop culture all the time that it's possible. And sometimes it's like Bridgerton is another one. Bridgerton season 1, when Daphne, in the rain is like saying, like, gives him some speech, and then like he decides he wants to have children with her. Like, and then we internalize that is, if we just say the right words, if we just make the right speech, if we just like send the right riddle or message, then they'll get it. If we play the game and make them jealous, then they'll realize. Like, it's always a game when you don't have emotional maturity to actually say the fucking truth, right? So I think like it's half not my fault. Like, I've been taught in our culture that the avoidant man is the deep man who's sensitive and he's just scared, and that's what we want even more. And so, like, just to be patient and wait and say the right things and, like, we can have the happily ever after. It's not true. Like, that's absolutely not true. I think another thing as well is that the avoidant man, I've dated several narcissists, and I don't say that word lightly. I've studied psychology and I know exactly what a narcissist is and how they act. And I have dated multiple, not all of them. Not all my ex-boyfriends are narcissists, but I've definitely dated guys that are narcissists. And one pattern that I see is that they're very aware of what they're doing to you with this. They're very aware that if they retract, that you lean in and that you internalize that you're not good enough and that you try to prove to them. And they breadcrumb, which is when they'll give you a little bit of exactly what you're hoping for. They show you the version of them that they could be, so that then you hold on to that and go, oh my God, they're perfect. If only I act better, then I can get more of this from them. Or this version of them is in them. I can see it. And then they also are very aware that cycle of like retracting and then giving you a breadcrumb and then retracting literally makes you addicted to them, because it like the highs and lows of that will trigger your nervous system and you get addicted to that cycle. And I know that's true for me, because the highs are so high when you get what you want from him for that split second. The situation I'm in now, I know he's not a narcissist, not like that. He's actually got a lot of green flags and a lot of emotional maturity in other ways, but it's just the situation. But I think because I'm someone who had these beliefs about love and was like I was a perfect narcissist trap because of my traumas. They knew exactly how to prey on my traumas, my, fears of not being good enough, everything. And so I was literally, and like, it's so interesting because like there's narcissists that I was tied to for years, but we would have breaks for like a year. And that whole time I'd be dreaming of them realizing like, that I was the one and coming back to me, and just all this fucking bullshit. It was like delusional bullshit. But they made me believe it, right? And I think like I was literally such a perfect narcissist trap because of my traumas. I knew exactly how to play on my traumas. And also these narcissists, looking back, when I first met them, I didn't even want them. I wasn't even interested in them. They literally caught me by catching me up in my like trauma bonds. So it's fucking crazy, man. So I think like realizing this, what's happening right now, honestly, is I feel like on my trip so far, I'm realizing that what I really want is like a really proper soulmate connection with someone. Like I feel like I'm ready to get married to the right person. The problem is, if you can call it that, my standards are so high now that it's very hard to find someone who can meet them, because like I feel like I saw a saying and it's like you would never let a person treat you worse than you treat yourself. And so years ago, I hated myself and I had no self-worth. And so I let people treat me however. Over the past like 4 or 5 years, I've done so much growth, so much work on my healing journey, on my trauma, on loving myself, that like I have let go and shedded so many people over that time because they can no longer meet me. They're not treating me as well as I'm treating myself, and I will no longer accept it, because the truth is that I like being alone. I enjoy my personal presence, my personal space. I treat myself so good that like me being alone isn't a bad thing. Like I enjoy my time with myself. So I have a lot of peace with myself. I have a lot of happiness within myself. Being me is a great place to be. Even all the darkness and trauma I've been through, I've turned that all into light because I've looked at it and I've dealt with it and I've loved it. Being me is a great place to be. So inviting someone into that, you're not competing with other men, you're competing with me. I saw a quote like that on TikTok or somewhere, I can't remember, but it's true. You're not competing with other men. You're competing with how I make me feel. And if I always make myself feel great and happy and peaceful, and you're coming into my life and bringing some bullshit, you're gone. Because why the fuck would I need that? And because I have high standards, I've accepted that there's a very real chance that I could end up alone. I really could end up alone, right? But I would rather be alone than settle. And I've made that decision to myself. I've made that commitment to myself. Even if I go 88 years single and I meet the love of my life, and we have 2 years together and he dies, that's worth it to me. I got 2 years of true love, because I really do believe in like true soulmate Titanic notebook love, like for real. So my standards are high, right? So I'm not willing to settle, because being alone is okay. And I also know that there's nothing more lonely than being in the wrong relationship where you don't feel seen, where you don't feel valued. Absolutely fuck that. But I feel like what's happening, like on my trip so far, is I feel like it's almost like practice for the real thing. I feel like I'm going through like relationship boot camp to get kind of like, I feel like these people are coming into my orbit, triggering and making me see old patterns that are still inside of me. And I had the choice now. I can either get sucked back into it and go into that painful love, which even though it's painful can be nice, especially if you've been alone for 4 years. Or I can say no to it and remain alone, recognize the pattern and say, I'm done with this. I cut that cord. I see that part of me. I heal it and we keep moving and our standards get even higher. So I feel like that's what's happening with me right now. And I feel like this is just another piece of it. And I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like the whole attachment avoidant relationship is so common, you know, and I actually do feel like I'm in a place to talk about it because I think what people don't realize is like when I talk about self-love, bitch, I came from the bottom of the barrel. Like I literally dated narcissists who humiliated me, right? And now I'm all the way up here. So I do feel like I have something to speak on this and I'm still learning, you know, I'm never going to stop learning. But I think it's just becoming clear about like, what do I want? And I think that's like really what's been reinforced because I'm like, you know, there is something nurturing in me that wants to hold their hand and help them through their trauma and their emotional maturity and come to the right conclusion. And maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like I wondered, I'm like, well, you know, that's so innate in me to want to do that. Like, where is that a bad thing? Because it's clearly crossing a line right now. And then I realized that I think it has to be kind of 50-50 in that like, well, how is he looking into my emotional like chaos that's going on inside of me right now? And how is he walking me through that? And how is he pointing out like my blinders and helping me grow? You know what I mean? And I think it's just like, what I realized is that I think each person in a relationship is responsible for 50% of the relationship health. So it can't be me, the only person in the relationship who's worried about how healthy the relationship is, doing all the emotional labor. I need someone who will do 50-50 with that. What this means is I need someone who can meet me at the table because there's been so many relationships where I've been alone in the relationship, the only one working on it, the only one still there. I need someone who's like sitting at the table with me. I'm not alone in the relationship. I think another thing is like it's really non-negotiable for me to have a man who's emotionally mature. And by that, I mean, can actually talk about his feelings and what he's feeling. You know, he doesn't even have to have it all worked out. Like, but just to let me know, like, this is what I'm processing at the moment. This is what I'm going through right now. Like, so I don't have to sit there and try and work it out. Because as soon as I'm sitting there trying to work it out, I resent that. And also, I feel like that's where people play games to indirectly communicate. You need to just be able to communicate. Just truth on the table, heart on the table. It might end badly, but I think at the end of the day, that's exactly what I want. I think it all comes down to this. I want a man who can never be destroyed by me. And I know this is contrast to the popular narrative of I can't live without you, but is that love or is that codependency? Do you want me or do you need me because you're too afraid to be alone? And that doesn't give me the freedom to be myself or to leave if I have to leave or to make the mistakes that I need to make in the relationship and be human. I want a man I feel like love is reserved for the brave and you have to go into love knowing that there's a chance that this can really fuck you up. It can end and it can break a completely heart, but I have to know that you'll be okay and that you'll bounce back. And I think that's why I gravitate towards men who've been through some shit. You know, the hottest line in The Notebook is when Allie's leaving because her fiance's in town and Noah says to her, if you want to leave, then go. I've lost you before. I can lose you again. And what he's saying is that I'm not going to beg you to stay here and be my wife. I know that I need to know that if you make that decision, it's because you want that, not because I've coerced you into that. And so I think like what I really look for in a man is someone who's like courageous enough for love. Because then, you know, every fight, if it eventually ends, you know, I don't think you can love fully unless you accept that there is a chance that it can like break you. You know what I mean? And that you'll be okay. So, you know, I think that I am someone who walks, like I'm not afraid of having my heart broken. I walk straight into it stupidly sometimes, but like, you know, I think that's like something that I need to be matched in. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much I feel like the final thing I want to say is a quote that I saw. I actually think I also saw this on TikTok, and it was like, the potential that you see in other people is not real. It's what you would do in their situation. I'm going to say that again. The potential that you see in other people is not real. It's what you would do in their situation. Because sometimes we hold on to this ideal version or this fantasy version that one day they'll come around. That might be what you would do in that situation, okay? But you're projecting because that's not them, which is also a nice thing in a way, because it kind of shows that you're kind of falling in love with yourself in a way. Like, you actually have some really good traits that you deserve to be matched at. So anyway, I don't know if that resonates with anybody out there. I feel like it will actually, but yeah, I guess that the secret is to just be okay with being alone. I feel like that's the only way that you can walk away from everything that doesn't align with you. That's what I would tell my younger self anyway. So, yeah. Bye.